And APB, American Protection Bureau, voted #1 best on Long Island for all your security needs. Call 631-390-9050. That's 631-390-9050. APB.
Just recognize him as probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, pro wrestlers in the history of the sport.
When wrestling was really wrestling.
There you go.
We'll be back in a moment, folks.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestler broadcast. Monte and Pharaoh, filmed only here at Indie Music Studios out of Ronkonkoma, New York. And on the couch, the great Barry Windham. Barry, how are you, buddy?
Doing great.
You look great, man. I saw you on a virtual signing yesterday. I was like, damn, he looks like he's in great shape.
Well, I had the heart attack back in November. I was out for 30 minutes at the airport, no heartbeat, nothing. And there was a doctor there, which I've got to find out who that is, and a guy that did the CPR on me for 30 minutes. And I was out, no heartbeat, no nothing.
Barry, may I ask, right, you have the heart attack when you're out. Do you still feel like your mind is working, or you just don't remember anything?
I don't remember, falling or anything. I was walking up the ramp to the counter, and at the counter I just dropped, and I don't remember any of that. But I remember the doc holding my head and looking at me, talking to me in my face, and then nothing after that until I was at the hospital and woke up after surgery.
How are you emotionally, right? We both have gone through this, and it's
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Some of the medicines mess with you, but I'm working out my doses, and everything's working out.
Okay.
Just the one I'm having trouble with is a cholesterol medicine. It's brutal. It just burns from the inside. It's terrible medicine. So we're just trying to get that dosage right, and from that it ought to be all right.
Now, again, I'm not looking into your medical history, but were you getting regular checkups, and this was undiagnosed, or were you not getting checked up enough, or I don't know?
Well, I hadn't been to the doctor in a while, and I was talking to Rotundo about 2 weeks before it happened, and we were walking through at Charlotte Airport, and I'm saying, man, wouldn't it be terrible to have a heart attack right here in the airport?
Uh-oh.
Bingo.
You spoke it out loud.
Yeah, but
what'd you do that
but
for?
I mean, I felt it because, we were carrying our bags, and we had to go from all the way one end to the very opposite side of the airport.
You felt something.
Yeah, and I was like, just out of breath. My legs were gone. So, I mean, I knew something was going on, and I just started back on some blood pressure medicine, but it just didn't help. Just had that 100% blockage.
I think it's a blessing maybe that happened in the airport, because you had
yeah.
a bunch of people there with stuff right there. I guess they shocked you, whatever else.
I was lucky that the person behind me was a doctor.
Oh, my God.
A female doctor. I don't know who she is. I got to find out who she is. And the guy from somewhere in South Carolina for 30 minutes. I mean, my ribs were separated, and I couldn't lay down and sleep for 2 months because my ribs were so beat up from him.
Right.
Mashing me, but I mean, they got to be really vigorous with that.
Yeah.
So I could just imagine what I look like out there. It's a tub of shit just bouncing around, pressing on my chest.
And I think you told me they put a stent in, right? So they didn't have to crack you open. They went right through your groin, I'm assuming, right?
Just put a stent in, and that was just had the one blockage.
Wow. And the rest of the arteries were good.
Yeah.
How does it feel that the wrestling world, everybody, was just so sad when it happened, but so happy, and the love, and I'm sure you got people visiting you and everything else. How does that make you feel?
Well, I really didn't know, that anything was going on. I wasn't looking at Facebook or anything for about, I'd say about 3 months. Probably March. I was just starting to get up and get around and get up on my feet. But, my niece started a GoFundMe page, which paid a bunch of my hospital bills. But now I've got insurance after I had the dadgum thing. Then I figure out, just stuff you never think about.
Right.
You just take for granted. And so I got a lot of things straight now.
Well, I got to tell you, I know we're glad you're here with us, and you were in our prayers when it happened, and
Yeah, I had a lot of prayers for me.
Well, God bless. Watch them. This year they had the documentary on the Graham family. Was clearly the angle was the suicidal tendencies of the entire family. When you look at the Graham family now, after your long relationship with Mike and your training and tutelage of Eddie, did you see that growing up, or is it something afterwards you're like, man, I just didn't see it, and this is what they were about?
After Eddie did it, Mike was one of my best friends. We traveled together all the time, and we went boating and fishing and diving. Mike wasn't the same after his dad shot himself, but when his son did it, Mike was dead set on killing himself. He asked me more than a dozen times if I had my gun in my truck, if I brought a gun with me, if I would loan him a gun, because his wife had taken all the guns out of the house. And I mean, he was a serious alcoholic, and just a few drinks, would make him loopy. And as soon as he would get drunk, he would start talking, fuck, why am I here? I'm going to kill myself. And I guess he just did it that night in October in Daytona. I got really good memories of Mike. He was, like I said, he was one of my best friends. But just after his son had killed himself, and his son, I guess Mike had tried to get his son into the business and as a referee or whatever, and he never could, just click, and never could find his spot to stick in. And he had a bad relationship with a girl, and he just shot himself. So I think that, I don't know if it was, now that you mention it, I think that there's history that Eddie's father killed himself too. So, I mean, those things you just don't know. They can be there, they can be in someone's mind and their psyche. I don't know, but just...
When he's asking you to borrow a gun, and you said a whole bunch of times, at any point did you get, angry at him? Like, Mike, snap the F out of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I talked to Mike.
So you tried as hard as you could to get through to him. What are you doing?
I would hug him. It was just brutal. It was just a tough time on him. But I
must have felt helpless.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
After the occurrence, do you feel like suicide is selfish in a way? Leaving friends?
Absolutely. I was pissed off at him for 5 years after he did that.
It must have been.
Must have just...
Why?
Motherfucker,
Yeah.
why did you do that?
Yeah.
And there's no answer.
That's the worst part. You don't get an answer.
That's successful, right?
Yeah. You gotta go with it 100%.
Barry,
Past that point.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's a tough time, but I got to clear this off the table. You lost your nephew recently.
Yeah.
You want to share your thoughts about what's going on with your family, and for wrestling fans, obvious a sad time, but I mean, my heart went out to you, your family, and the Rotunda family. It's just a shame.
Yeah, it's still pretty hard to talk about, but I mean, he was just such a... He was such a beautiful person.
Yeah. Well, our prayers are with you guys, man.
Yeah, he's going to be sorely missed.
He's one of the most brilliant minds in the business currently, that's for sure. That is for sure.